Hi, and welcome to this session. I've got Kasper Kulikowski. Is that correctly said?
That's correct. Thank you.
Near
Thanks for
enough,
having
right.
me.
Brilliant. You're the developer relations at Google Chrome. And from what I understand, you engage with developers to find out what they need, what they want, and explain to them what you're bringing to the table.
Correct. Also, I helped drive ecosystem conversations and represent interests of developers within Google.
Right. So you're not a developer. You're the relations between the developers and the Google Chrome team.
I would call myself, I am a software engineer that works as DevRel.
Okay, brilliant. So we're going to be talking about the Agentic Web, and this started because we had a conversation a few weeks ago where you were talking about agents within the Chrome browser, and I hadn't even thought about that.
Right.
And it's super interesting. So we're going to be talking about that and the idea that agents within a browser is actually a thing. Mm-hmm. But before that, I want to go back and say, generally speaking, with agents coming into our ecosystem as users and as Google and as browsers. I mean, we've got the search engine, we've got the AI mode, we've got the Google Chrome, we've got the users. Agents are now a big part or are becoming a big part of our ecosystem. Yeah. What's going to change in the next 12 to 24 months, in your opinion?
Yeah, so first of all, this is all pretty exciting, right? Because if you think about it, agents are writing code. They are browsing the web. And if you had told me that like 10 years ago, what is happening now, I would say, yeah, like a science fiction, you know? And I personally believe that we will experience way more agentic interactions in 12 to 24 months from now. Because if you think about it, like how much has changed in the last 2 years, right? Just 2 years, right? So during one of my recent talks, I asked the audience, like, how many of you used any form of AI in your work in the last week? And guess what? Everyone raised their hands, right? So that can also mean, from my perspective, that users will have certain expectations, and those expectations will probably grow, right? And if users will choose agents as their go-to way to browse the web, then they will naturally gravitate towards websites that play well with agents, right? But to be completely fair, at the same time, I remember the times when online stores became a thing in Poland, right? And people were saying that, yeah, it's so over for physical stores. Like nobody will ever want to go to physical store. And yeah, guess what? I am in physical store, I think, at least once every week. So in my opinion, it also applies to the web, right? So some users will continue to browse the web as they always have. Others will use agents, right? And you said like 24 months from now. So I personally think that in 2028, the expectations will be different for different types of websites. For example, if you analyze traffic of your local grocery store, it might be like 5% agentic, you know, while documentation page for latest API, whatever it is, might get like 95% from agents, right? Because coding agents will use it, right? So as the ecosystem, I think we have to understand who will use our website and what are their expectations, right? So what channels, what types of interactions user expect, and so on, right? So at the same time, I think we cannot ignore this agentic shift that is happening. And of course, you know, there are certain ways in which you can optimize your website for the agentic interactions, right?
Right. Yeah, 100%. And I mean, I really like the fact that you said if you're a grocery store, that's going to be 5%. I used coffee shop as the example, and strangely, we said exactly the same number. I say 5%, and I'm calling it the agentic spectrum. You need to look at your business and look at your website and think,
yes,
where am I on that spectrum? Is it going to be 5% of my business, or is it going to be 95% of my business, or somewhere in between? And is it going to be 95 today, or is it going to be 95 tomorrow? So there's both the spectrum and the time.
Yeah. At the same time, I can imagine scenarios where there will be like some highly specialized use case that you have agent that orders you a coffee, and then the coffee shop might be like fully agentic, right? It's just like a speculation, but might happen, right?
Yeah, no, 100%. And it's super difficult to predict.
Yes.
And you don't know the opportunities you're going to be missing. So the key is to prepare.
Yeah.
And the question then is, you're saying in 2 years, our expectations are going to be completely different. The operationability of it is going to be completely different. How urgent is this for websites and brands?
Yeah, so as I said, I think the websites cannot ignore this shift that is happening, and what I would suggest is to really talk to the users, to really observe what is happening in the ecosystem, experiment a lot, first of all, right? Because also observe what others are doing, what makes others successful, right? And I know it can be very hard because we can see every new protocol or every new mechanism being available every 2 weeks or so.
Yeah.
So I understand that there are complexities, but there are also like a lot of things that we can do today that are universal, and I doubt will ever change, but we can get to it.
Right. Yeah, no, 100%. And so I was actually looking for this image that I published in the articles on Search Engine Land, which is, sorry, not this one. Oop, this one. So this is just to visualize what we were saying, the idea of search, assistive, and agential, and different needs are going to have different, different purchases and intents are going to have different uses, from the wedding venue all the way through for a taxi from A to B, which would be something I would definitely allow an agent to do for me, because it's simply saying, I want to go from A to B, I want it to be reliable, and I want it to be as cheap as possible.
Right.
So the other part that I actually just showed and gave the game away a little bit was this one here, which is the AI era business engineering. We discussed that the other day. And the 3 types of click: the imperfect click in search, the perfect click in assistive engines, and the agentic click in agents, obviously, which is the moment that you win the client. So can you give me your perspective on this, the diagram and the idea of the 3 different types of click?
Right. So I hope I understand this diagram correctly, right? But
Me too.
currently, what I am focusing on mainly is I think the agentic click, right? So where agent can take an action on behalf of human.
Yep.
Right. And then I said, as an answer to the previous question, like there are certain ways that we can improve today that will be helpful immediately, right? So if you want to focus on that, we can explore this more.
Okay, super. So WebMCP is the next topic. I was just talking to Jono Alberson about it, and he was suggesting that, like many technologies, developers are not going to be very consistent in their implementation. Do you feel that, number one, it's difficult? And number two, do you think that it will be something that will catch on and that people will adopt it and it will become a standard?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I will start maybe with some little bit of context, because I think that's very helpful. So we have to understand what modern agents are capable of doing today. So when agent visits your website, it can use 3 main ways to interact with it. It can take screenshots, it can read down, and it can study the accessibility tree, right? And by analyzing screenshots, agent can understand the layout, like where the search bar is, where the menu is, but also like study some like a visual cues, like a big red delete button. Okay, this is potentially dangerous. Maybe we should not click this immediately, right? Also, the agent, as I said, can read the DOM. So all the text, all the structure, all the classes, IDs of your elements, to really understand things like, if there is a button within the same div as a product, maybe this button is for this specific product only, right? And also the accessibility tree. So it's very important to me to mention this, that the accessibility is for humans first, right?
Accessibility is incredibly important. It's forgotten. And I agree 100%. I look at accessibility and I don't do enough of it personally.
Yeah. So I would like to add maybe some things to the assistive technology, right? Because I really think that accessibility for the agentic with the agentic interactions is really under-recognized gain, because when I talk to people and people with disabilities as well, majority of people do not realize how inaccessible the web truly is, right? And at the same time, for the vast majority of businesses, like small businesses, building and maintaining an accessible website, it requires time, money, and expertise that they might not have, right? And even when like a company does everything, all the heavy lifting to achieve compliance, the actual user experience might still not be great, right? Because the feedback I've heard also is that navigating the web with screen reader is not optimal and not efficient because the visual layouts are treated as first-class use cases, right?
Right.
And that's why I think the adoption of things like WebMCP is so impactful, because it improves the experience for everyone across the board, right? So, and there is a business incentive in this as well, right? So not just like the obvious moral argument, right, that the web should be accessible, but there is also the business incentive here, because by investing into accessibility, businesses are opening their doors to customers that otherwise would not be able to interact with them, right? So by making interactions between agent and website faster and more reliable, businesses have a clear commercial reason to adopt it, with this awesome effect of making the web easier to navigate, for people with disabilities, right? And yeah, so that's why I think the agents, like browser agents, they are assistive technology that can really help people, right? And I think it's very under-recognized.
Right, no, 100%. And that just makes me think, I've built my website and I'm thinking about my audience and I don't think about accessibility. And I think my job is done. And then I think, okay, if I add the accessibility standards, then all of a sudden I'm opening up two new audiences, one of which is more human beings and the other of which is human beings through agents.
Yeah. And the agent just happened to benefit from it. And based on the accessibility tree, agent can understand the roles, the names, and the states of elements of your website, right? But then there is certain challenge. There is a certain challenge for agents, right? So I like to bring up the example with the hotel booking, right? So you in your life, you probably saw multiple of hotel booking websites, right? So you have some mental model or how they operate and where to look for things, right? So you type in some location, your how many people, the dates, right? And you click search. And then you might have some preferences, right? Maybe gym, maybe late checkout, maybe breakfast, right? And I strongly believe you will be able to come up with many more things that make this whole journey more complex, right? So the more complex the journey is, the harder it is for an agent to synthesize all of those mentioned signals like screenshots, DOM, and accessibility into actionable plan, right? And that's actually where WebMCP comes in handy, right? Because like, let's maybe bring in the definition that I like to say about the WebMCP. So currently, WebMCP is a proposed web standard that is being discussed in W3C, standard that aims to expose structured tools to AI agents on currently existing websites, right? So what does it mean? How would it influence the journey for the hotel, right? So let's assume that in addition to all of those mentioned signals, the website exposes a tool that is named, let's say, search hotel with parameters location, people, dates, and amenities, right? And if the agent can just find the tool, it can fill this tool with parameters, right? And just call it, right? So the whole journey becomes simpler, right? And also in terms of like a potentially less tokens used, as I say, faster and potentially more reliable, right? And at the same time, there are certain misconceptions about WebMCP and other agentic web-related technologies that I am observing. So I think we have to distinguish like between two use cases. Like the first use case would be the agent is searching for a website, right? For example, by using Google search tool or Google search in general. Then guidance published by Google search team is your go-to, right? Everything that Google search team provides is the truth for the Google search, right? And then there is a second use case that the agent is working with an active website, right? Agent is already, or you are co-browsing with the agent and it's already on the website. And that's when it's time for WebMCP really shine. Also, when I talk to the folks from the SEO community, it's not like the only thing that they care is the ranking in the Google search, right? It's the whole conversion funnel is important, right? And the getting onto the website is just like the first step, right? And then we have to help users navigate the whole funnel up until they buy product, subscription, or whatever the website is offering, right? So that's how I think about positioning WebMCP.
Right, brilliant, thank you. So you just talked about on-site, and I was interested in on-site agents versus external agents. You talked to me about that. What's the difference? Give me a run through of that, because it isn't immediately obvious, I think.
So that is something that I am currently actively exploring. And by external agents, I mean any agent that is external to the website. So it can be browser agent, it can be coding agent, right? Then we have on-site agents, so agents that are tightly coupled with the website and its workflows. So the way I think about it is that today, a lot of businesses have some chat assistants or some kind of AI helpers on their website, right? And the obvious power of such solution is they can be created in a way that include all needed domain knowledge, use already established workflows, and be fully under control of the brand, tested, evaluated, right? And my personal view, and I will be probably publishing some thoughts about it soon, my personal view is that it's not too far-fetched to think that we will have browser agents that will help users like find relevant websites, like navigate the web in general. Then the website might already have an on-site agent, right? So there can be a moment of a handoff, right? So the browser agent helped user get to the site, and now on-site agent will handle user intent and report back to the browser agent, right? So there can be like this pretty interesting dynamic. But at the same time, I think not everyone needs to build their own agent, right? And that's actually the big power of WebMCP, right? That instead of building agent, you can expose tools that the user agent will actually utilize or potentially utilize, right? So of course, like creating on-site agents it comes with its own challenges. And as I said, I'll be definitely exploring this further and like publishing thoughts about it soon. So like overall, it's like very, very interesting, very exciting, and I'm really looking forward to how the ecosystem will evolve in this area.
Yeah, but you actually said three different things there: user agent, browser agent, and on-site agent. Can you define the difference?
Yeah. What we commonly understand as a user agent is the browser, right? That's what the browser is called, a user agent. Then by the browser, when I say browser agent, I mean in browser agent, like for example Gemini in Chrome, right? That's one example. Also, like in Atlas, you have an agent, the browser from OpenAI. In the Comet from Perplexity, you have an agent, right? And then you have on-site agent that is not tied to the browser, but it's tied to the website itself, right? So that's the difference.
Right? And then you also have me building my own OpenClaw access.
Of course.
Which is what I thought you meant when you said user agent. Obviously, user agent is a browser,
I mean that can be also understood like the agent that user is using, right? So it can be OpenClaw, yes. But when people say user, or in the past when people were saying user agent, they meant browser, right?
Yeah. No, so there's a confusion there. But then the point about the user agent in the sense of the agent that belongs to the user that is not a browser. I'm using OpenClaw and I'm interacting with the website in some way.
Yes.
To what extent is that actually going to be common? Because I hear a lot of people saying, "Oh, I built this amazing machine that the agent goes off and does all this stuff for me, and it's not a browser, and it's not built on anybody's technology because I'm using my own LLM to drive it." And all of a sudden, we've got a lot of people saying, "Well, this is going to be a huge market," and I'm wondering, will it?
Yeah. So,
or is it just super geeky and only the geeks do it?
Yeah. I mean, for me, that's like a very relevant use case, right? Because as I said, like I think there will be many different kinds of interactions that people will expect, right? And I expect people will still browse the web as they always have, as I said, right? There will be people that will utilize browser agents for the co-browsing, but I also see it as a possibility that what will take off is like I send a text message to my agent, right? And it can do things on my behalf and like bring me in some interesting results, right? For example, I'm looking for a winter jacket size 3XL. It's very hard to find in stores. And then I can task my agent to do it. It can come back to me with some results, and then I can make a decision, right? So I think that's also what I meant by businesses and the ecosystem. We will have to understand what is expected from our users, from our customers, and what channels we should invest in, what channels we should utilize, right?
Right. And another question then is assistant and agent. It seems, I mean, I was talking about assistive engines, saying it's assisting me, but then the difference between an assistant and an agent is actually now quite blurred. For me, in my mind, an assistive engine gives me a recommendation, one choice, and then I click the button. An agent actually acts for me. But that's actually pretty much, they're all agents now.
I would say so. I would say so, that there is like a, if you call the browser agent assistive technology, I would say I agree. It's an assistive technology, you know, and it depends on the implementation details. Like what if my assistive technology also can take actions, right? To some extent, or what if my agent will never take action, but it will always suggest me things to do? You know, can also work, right? So I think it's like a very blurry, or it's just, you know, the same.
Yeah,
to some extent, right?
I love that. Okay, well, the last question is with Chrome, because I mean, that's where we started talking. Yeah. What agential technology is in Chrome today, and what's coming in the future that you can talk about?
Yeah, so currently we are running the Origin trial for WebMCP. So I strongly encourage everyone to join the the Origin trial and experiment, right? And we are.
So what is that?
Like the Origin trial. So when you will join the Origin trial, your website will be able to expose the WebMCP tools, and your users will be able to use the integrations that are available to them to interact with the tools. Even some for some A/B testing, it may be useful, right? For the website. But I want to stress this out, that WebMCP is still a proposed web standard. It's still experimental. The API is changing, right? But I think, I personally think that it's a very, very correct direction for the web. Also, what we do have is the Gemini in Chrome that we did show on the I/O during the developer keynote, and what was shown is that the support for WebMCP is coming soon. That's what I was, that's, I think, is the right message for this.
Right. So whether or not WebMCP is accepted as a standard, Chrome will be WebMCP friendly.
That's a good question. I don't know. I mean, I really hope that the discussions will go in the way that WebMCP will actually become a standard, right? Because what constitutes a standard? Of course, W3C is the one thing, right? That discussions are still ongoing, right? The other thing, if you think about the other things in the agentic space, like how they come to be a standard, like MCP or skills, right? Companies just, showcase this and people adopted this, right? That's how it became a standard effectively, right? So I really think it comes down to the adoption and to solving the problems or risks related to security, adoption, and so on. And we are actively discussing this. Also, W3C is actively handling this. So yeah, really excited to see where it goes.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Kasper. That was brilliant. Thank you, everybody, for watching. See you in the next session.
See you.